Imagine this. You're standing in the grocery store staring at 2 brands of peanut butter like your entire bloodline depends on it. You're frozen, sweating, mentally calculating the moral, financial, and spiritual impact of choosing creamy over crunchy. Meanwhile, the person behind you is silently debating whether to run you over with their cart. You know what that moment is? Proof you've become the CEO of overthinking. And let's be honest, you're not just doing this with peanut butter. You're doing this with your career, your relationships, your happiness, your entire goddamn life. You've turned simple decisions into hostage negotiations with yourself. You've made what if your emotional support animal. And deep down, you know it. You're not confused. You're scared. But today, we're done letting fear drive this clown car of a decision-making process. Today, we're dissecting your overthinking like a frog in 9th grade biology. Except this time, the frog is you. And yes, everyone will see the guts. Welcome to the video your anxiety hoped you'd skip. Too bad, we're starting anyway. Today, we're diving into The Overthinker's Guide to Making Decisions by Joseph Nguyen, an author known for writing the kind of books that make you put your phone down, question all your life choices, and then immediately pick your phone back up because you remembered you're addicted to dopamine. Joseph Nguyen writes about the mind with one clear goal: to expose the lies your thoughts have been feeding you and drag you back to the version of yourself that actually knows what the hell it's doing. His other works, including Don't Believe Everything You Think, all revolve around one core idea. Your mind is a terrible driver, a decent narrator, and a full-blown drama queen. But it can be retrained, recentered, reclaimed. Before we go further, this video is for educational purposes only. We're analyzing the ideas, adding commentary, bringing new meaning, and delivering an interpretation in a confrontational style. We are not replacing the book. If you want the full experience, buy the damn book. Joseph Nguyen earns the support. Now, here's where we make things uncomfortable. This isn't going to be a sweet, gentle summary where I tuck you into bed with a cup of tea and whisper, "It's okay, sweetheart, your anxiety makes sense." No. This is a flashlight in your eyes interrogation about why you keep letting fear talk to you like it pays rent. Nguyen's book is fundamentally about one thing. You don't have a decision-making problem. You have a fear problem masquerading as a logic problem. You think you're analyzing. You think you're being careful. You think you're just trying to be responsible. Translation? You're avoiding life. Nguyen wants you to do the opposite. To stop outsourcing your decisions, to stop using anxiety as a personality trait, to stop letting every choice feel like a bomb you're diffusing with oven mitts. This book isn't about finding the perfect choice, it's about becoming the version of you who can handle any choice. And throughout this series, I'm going to break down each chapter, brutally, honestly, and with zero emotional cushioning, so you can stop drowning in your mind and start navigating your life. Welcome to Mindful Reads Hub. Let's get started. The threshold, where every decision begins. Every life changes at a doorway, but most people never walk through theirs. They hover in front of it like someone staring at a gym entrance on January 1st, convinced today is the day, right up until their brain whispers a soft, seductive excuse. And suddenly they're back home scrolling TikTok and pretending they didn't have enough time. No, they had time. They just didn't have courage. That's the invisible problem Joseph is trying to rip the mask off. Decisions don't feel heavy because they're deep or complex. They feel heavy because you're standing at the threshold pretending you don't know what's behind the door, when in reality you do. You've always known. Your life is being shaped right in front of you by the choices you delay, not the choices you make. The book calls this the silent weight of choice. And it's not silent at all. It's loud enough to wake you at 3 a.m., asking whether you should quit your job, leave the relationship, change cities, change habits, change yourself. It's loud in Mumbai, where 20-somethings are drowning under tech layoffs, in London, where rent prices are making people question if adulthood was a scam, in the US, where inflation has turned grocery runs into emotional damage. Everywhere, people are frozen at the doorway, terrified to take the next step because one wrong move might ruin everything. But here's the punch. Most people aren't afraid of the decision. They're afraid of the story their mind will tell them if the decision doesn't play out perfectly. That's why Joseph's message hits. Not because he hands you magical answers, but because he exposes how your brain quietly bullies you at the threshold. Modern advice says, trust your gut. Cute. But half the world can't even trust their internet connection. And trust your gut becomes nonsense when anxiety is masquerading as intuition. The book pushes back against this idea, not because intuition is fake, but because most people are trying to listen for a quiet inner voice while a full mental circus is screaming over it. And that's the trap at the threshold, waiting for certainty, waiting for a sign, waiting for the fear to disappear, waiting until you feel ready. Let's get real. You'll never feel ready. Your nervous system was built for survival, not self-actualization. Nature didn't design you to take risks. It designed you to avoid being eaten. Yet here you are acting like choosing a new job is equivalent to picking the wrong berry in the Stone Age. That's why your mind spirals. That's why a simple choice feels existential. Joseph explains that indecision isn't caused by a lack of options, it's caused by too many. Humans freeze when the possibilities multiply, not when they shrink. Research from Columbia University showed that people given 24 options were 10 times less likely to choose anything than people given 6. Overchoice is paralysis, and paralysis becomes identity. The moment before action, that threshold, is where most lives are lost. Not through disaster, not through failure, but through hesitation. That half second of should I becomes a month, then a year, then a decade. It's the reason people wake up at 50, wondering why their life feels like a playlist they didn't choose. And the real tragedy? They thought waiting would protect them. But waiting is the thing destroying them. Waiting for certainty is waiting for a world that doesn't exist. Waiting for courage is waiting for someone else to live your life. Waiting for approval is waiting for permission to be yourself. In today's collapsing economies, unstable job markets, rising mental health crises, and entire generations terrified of choosing wrong, Nguyen's point is brutally relevant. You don't need more time, you need movement. The threshold is crossed not when you know everything, but when you stop needing to. So here's the uncomfortable reflection. What doorway are you standing at pretending you don't see? What decision have you rehearsed in your head 1,000 times but refused to act on once? Write it down. List every decision you've been waiting to make. The ones you avoid by binge watching reality TV or doom scrolling news about economies you can't control. The threshold is not a place to live, it's the place you leave, and to cross it, you must understand what's holding you back, because the problem isn't the decision, it's the mind making it. Key idea: the moment before action, the threshold, is where most dreams die, not because the choice is too big, but because people wait for certainty instead of choosing movement. Key takeaway: life doesn't change when you know what to do. It changes when you stop negotiating with your fear and step forward without a guarantee. Waiting for perfect clarity is the fastest way to waste the one life you have. Favorite quote: heavy is the head that wears the crown of choice. The mind that never stops. Why we overthink everything. Every time you overthink, it's not because you're weak. It's because your mind is screaming at you louder than your courage ever could. Nguyen drills into how overthinking is not just some annoying habit, it's the hidden machinery behind every what if, every internal monologue that never shuts up, every mental spiral that leaves you paralyzed. It's not that you don't care. You care too damn much. You care so deeply about making the perfect choice, about not screwing up, about being seen as competent. So what does your brain do? It runs its own marathon, looping on doubts, risks, and the fear of being wrong. He explains that overthinking is deeply rooted in how your brain is wired. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's supposed to help you think, plan, decide, goes into overdrive. Meanwhile, your emotional alarm system, the amygdala, keeps lighting the match under the fuel of your anxiety. The result? A feedback loop that keeps you stuck in analysis paralysis instead of acting. And Joseph doesn't just talk in theory, he names the trick your mind plays on you. It camouflages fear as logic. Every rational concern you have about the future is really just your brain begging for safety, but in waiting for the safe answer, you never choose. Here's where reality hits. This isn't a problem limited by geography. Overthinking is global. In India, for example, a recent India Overthinking report found that 81% of people spend more than 3 hours each day mulling over even the most ordinary decisions, from replying to a message to picking what to eat. That's not just overanalysis, it's systemic rumination, it's culture, and it's killing your agency. Neuroscience backs Joseph up. New research out of the University of Minnesota shows that anxiety and apathy distort how people perceive uncertainty and thereby how they explore options. Anxious people, in particular, perceive the world as volatile, which fuels endless exploration after every negative outcome. That's exactly the trap. Exploration disguised as thoughtfulness, but often cutting off action. Meanwhile, apathy makes people withdraw, complacent, because they see the world as random and not worth engaging. If you thought this was just mental weakness, think again. Anxiety doesn't just mess with your mood, it rewires how you make economic choices too. A study from the London School of Economics argues that trait anxiety affects your risk tolerance, time preference, and willingness to commit, meaning your brain literally taxes itself harder when making financial or life decisions. Joseph warns that overthinking is deceptive. The more you do it, the more your brain trains itself to do it. Like any deeply ingrained habit, the neural pathways of rumination strengthen over time. The neurons that fire together wire together, so every wasted loop is a reinforcement of the cycle. And if you're not consciously breaking it, your mind becomes a factory producing more loops. That matters because the cost is biological. Overthinking floods your system with cortisol, the stress hormone. Prolonged exposure impairs memory, raises blood pressure, and wrecks emotional regulation. It's not just mental exhaustion, it's physiological damage. And here's a cold dose of truth. Overthinking isn't always obvious. You might think you're being thoughtful, careful, or strategic, but if your thoughts trap you rather than empower you, they're turning into a cage. Your brain is lying to you by telling you that reflection equals wisdom, when really it's just stalling. So what do? Joseph encourages a radical reframe. Overthinking isn't a failure, it's a signal. It signals that something about this decision matters, too much, that behind the noise is a deeper pattern, a fear, a value. He wants you to listen, but not obey. You must learn to guide the loop instead of being imprisoned by it. Here's a practical move to break the loop. Notice when you're spinning. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I decide now? Then, try a tiny experiment. Take 5 minutes and decide something small. Doesn't matter if it's wrong. The point isn't perfection, it's practice. Build trust with your brain by choosing, despite the fear. When you do this, you chip away at the liar that is overthinking, and you build a new relationship with your mind. Not master and slave, but co-pilot. Key idea, overthinking isn't a flaw. It's a deeply wired signal that your mind cares too much, but it's communicating through fear, not clarity. Key takeaway, you must treat mental loops as information, not commandments. Recognize when your brain is spinning, challenge it with small decisions, and rewire the habit by acting in spite of fear. Favorite quote: overthinking is not a sign you're lost, it's a sign you're loaded. The lens shapes the world. How focus creates your reality. You're staring at your life's menu, but you don't even know which part of the buffet you're supposed to be hungry for. That's the core problem. It's not just about what you pick, it's about where your attention goes. Nguyen argues that most overthinkers make decisions by looking at options instead of asking who they want to become. Their gaze is on the outcome, not the person behind the decision. In the book, Nguyen describes how we treat decisions like shopping, endlessly comparing features, prices, pros and cons, as if by analyzing every bullet point we'll land on an infallible choice. But that's bullshit. Real clarity doesn't come when you zoom in on options. It comes when you zoom out and ask, what kind of person do I want to be on the other side of this? That shift in focus is the game changer. Instead of asking, which job pays more? Or, is this the smartest move? You ask, if I choose this, will I become someone courageous, someone consistent, someone who actually finishes things? When you reframe decisions this way, you stop being a consumer of life and become a creator of self. Nguyen also warns about chasing outcomes. He shows that outcome-based decision-making is a trap because results are often unpredictable, and you'll tie your self-worth to what happens after you choose. So if the outcome sucks, you feel like you sucked. But when you choose based on essence, your values, your emerging identity, you're less vulnerable to regret because you're building the identity itself, not chasing external validation. He illustrates this with a story. An overthinker agonizes over a career pivot, weighing salary, prestige, security. But when they focus on who they'll become, someone with integrity, someone fearless, they realize they can accept a lower paying but more meaningful job. This isn't theory, this is vision. It's playing the long game. Neuroscience backs him up. Your focus literally shapes your reality. The brain networks responsible for attention and decision making don't passively observe the world. They filter it. When you focus on worst case scenarios, your brain becomes a negative detection machine. When you focus on growth and identity, you tune into opportunities and alignment. Modern research shows that chronic overthinkers tend to have overactive default mode networks, DMN, the part of the brain that drifts in self-referential thinking, and underactive frontoparietal networks, which handle goal-directed attention. When you rewrite what you're paying attention to, you reshape which neural pathways fire. That's not just psychology, that's rewiring. Biologically, overthinking floods your system with cortisol. That stress hormone doesn't just mess with your mood, it weakens your hippocampus, your memory center, making you forget why you started thinking in the first place, what your deeper goals were. Also, when your amygdala, your threat detector, is constantly lit up, it hijacks your prefrontal cortex, sabotaging rational thinking. This is why focusing on outcomes often lights the fire of your anxiety instead of calming it. On a global scale, this matters more than ever. In places like Europe and Asia, where competitive job markets and economic volatility are skyrocketing, people are making decisions out of fear. Will I be left behind? Will my parents be proud? Can I afford to fail? When job security is shaky, people double down on outcome obsession instead of asking, who do I want to become in a world of uncertainty? Meanwhile, uncertainty has become the global anthem. The IMF recently warned that uncertainty is the new normal in the world economy. That's not motivation to freeze, that's the call to re-anchor your attention to you, not just what's happening around you. Here's where Nguyen's advice slaps. Slow your roll. Sit with your decisions, but don't drown in future scenarios. Pause and ask, if I shift my focus from what I could get to who I could be, how does that feel? Try it as an experiment. For any decision, spend 10 minutes filtering through a new lens. identity, growth, alignment. Not which option is safer, but which version of me matters more. The practical shift he suggests is deceptively simple. List out what you're focusing on in a big decision: security, prestige, fear of failure. And then write a second line. What if I focused on who I'll become instead? Resilient, creative, brave. Then simulate that decision in your mind using this new lens and feel how your body responds. If your chest relaxes or your breath steadies, that's a signal, because when you change the filter through which you make decisions, you change not just the decision, you change your future self. Key idea: the clarity to make aligned decisions doesn't come from obsessing over options. It comes from shifting focus toward the person you want to become. Key takeaway: you reshape your life by choosing not just smarter, but deeper. Align your attention with your emerging self, and you'll make decisions that build the future you, not just chase safe outcomes. Favorite quote: decisions don't just determine your path, they determine who you become walking down it. The fear of being wrong and why it doesn't matter. It's time we talk about the single most toxic lie your brain sells you, that being wrong is something you must avoid at all costs. Nguyen calls this out. The fear of being wrong doesn't just paralyze you, it builds a prison around every decision you could ever make. You don't avoid decisions because they are hard, you avoid them because your brain is terrified of being wrong. And by wrong, it means not perfect, not safe, not predictable, the outcomes that don't deliver the flawless redemption arc you've scripted in your head. And Nguyen points out how this fear trips people up again and again. You stall because what if someone judges you? What if you regret it? What if it all blows up? You treat every decision like a verdict on your worth instead of a chance to learn, grow, and simply move. That's the delusion. The brain inflates risk, magnifies regret, and buries alignment under a mountain of what-ifs. In his book, he breaks down how your mind exaggerates the downside. Because your brain is wired for survival, not self-actualization, it sees risk as threat. It whispers to you, if you choose wrong, you'll lose everything: safety, reputation, identity. And suddenly, you're locked into analysis paralysis. You overcount the worst case, undervalue the upside. You treat alignment like a hedge bet, not a compass. Here's where it gets interesting. Nguyen doesn't just tell you to lean in or trust your gut. He challenges you to redefine what right even means. According to him, a decision isn't right because it's safe or guaranteed. It's right when it aligns with who you want to become, not just what you want to avoid. It's not about perfection, it's about authenticity. He argues that good enough is not settling. Sometimes it's exactly what liberation looks like. He gives a practical move. Pick a decision you've been scared to make because it could go wrong. Then write down your worst case scenario and your best case scenario. Rate how likely each is. Notice how often your brain inflates the bad more than the good. Then do something radical. Make a small wrong decision on purpose. Something low stakes. Order the thing you're not 100% sure about. Make the call you're worried you'll regret. And then watch what actually happens. Because here's the truth. Nguyen drives home. Making a decision and surviving it is how you dismantle the fear of being wrong. When you test the system, you gather data. When you act, you build trust. When you fail, you learn that you're still standing. And that defeats the illusion that wrong equals catastrophe. Now, let's zoom out. This fear isn't just personal, it's cultural and economic. In many parts of the world, including Asia and Europe, economic instability and skyrocketing living costs make people cling to safe decisions. But in 2025, the IMF warned that uncertainty is now the baseline for the global economy. Instead of letting that paralyze you, what if you leaned into it? What if, instead of making decisions based on fear, you used that uncertainty to sharpen your alignment? Waiting for safety in a world this volatile is a luxury. and a lie. On a neural level, modern research supports him. The default mode network, DMN, the part of your brain linked to self-referential thinking, rumination, and what-if loops, is hyperactive in people who chronically overthink and fear being wrong. When the DMN hijacks your brain, every decision feels like a moral test, not a choice. Studies show that in individuals with high anxiety, the DMN's functional connectivity is altered, which distorts risk perception and emotional regulation. By daring to make a decision in spite of that, you essentially rewire your brain, weakening the grip of the DMN and strengthening more grounded, action-oriented networks. This isn't reckless, it's courageous. It's not about ignoring risk. It's about seeing risk with clarity, aligned with your values, not with your fear. Key idea: the fear of being wrong doesn't guard you, it traps you. True decision-making power comes not from avoiding error, but from choosing in alignment with who you want to become, even if outcome is uncertain. Key takeaway: risk is inevitable, but regret shrinks when you act from your values, not from fear. Making small, possibly wrong decisions builds confidence and weakens the grip of overthinking. Favorite quote: "The only wrong decision is the one fear makes for you." The inner compass, returning to what you already know. You've been running away from something sacred, your inner wisdom. For weeks, you've been outsourcing your truth to friends, gurus, algorithms, and every self-help podcast. Nguyen slaps you hard with the reminder that the wisdom you seek hasn't been lost. It lives in you. You just stopped listening. He digs into how, when overthinking runs wild, it almost always drowns out your inner compass. That voice you call a hunch, the bodily ping you ignore. It's not mystical, it's pre-wired, but because your emotions, past stories, and relentless rumination are so loud, you confuse courage for confusion and trust for chaos. Instead of tuning into your inner knowing, you lean on logic, second-guessing, spreadsheets, and expert advice, and you lose yourself. Nguyen makes a brutal point. Self-trust isn't naive. It's not some woo-woo stargazing ideal, it's survival. When your brain is overthinking, it's because part of you cares deeply about getting things right. But there's a difference between caring and catastrophizing. The inner compass doesn't demand perfection, it asks, what feels true for you? He warns that external pressure is the world's favorite racket. Parents, culture, social media, they all whisper advice like they own your life. But you're letting them steer you because you don't trust your own voice. And here's the thing, if you don't claim your voice, someone else will write your story for you. In Asia, in Europe, in North America, economic instability and rampant social comparison are pushing people to make decisions that are safe or expected, not aligned. The cost? A lifetime of quiet resentment and a slowly fading sense of self. Nguyen teaches a simple but powerful experiment. Stop what you're doing. Pause for 2 full minutes before a decision. Sit still. Close your eyes. Feel your body. Let your gut weigh in. Notice how tension rises or falls. Does your chest feel tight or calm when you think about one choice versus another? When you reconnect with that bodily signal, you're reconnecting with a compass that's more reliable than the noise in your head. He also uses journaling. Write down a time when you ignored your gut. What happened? Then write down a time when you followed it. What were the outcomes? By doing this, you map out how your intuition has spoken in the past and how often you silenced it. On a scientific level, there's smart psychology behind this. Overthinking activates the brain's default mode network, DMN, the part of your brain that's deeply linked to self-referential thinking, rumination, and the mental replay of what-ifs. When the DMN is running in overdrive, your inner compass gets drowned out by a static of anxiety, uncertainty, and judgment. Meanwhile, decision-making frameworks that ignore this biological truth often fail you. Conventional wisdom says, just trust your gut. But Nguyen argues, how can you trust something you've never learned to hear? Instead, he gives you tools like mini experiments and reflection prompts, so your inner wisdom doesn't just whisper, it speaks loud enough for you to follow. It's not mystical, it's methodical, and it's liberating. Key idea, your deepest answers aren't out there, they're in you. Trusting your intuition isn't naive, it's essential. Your inner compass is pre-wired and wise if you bother to listen. Key takeaway, you don't need to outsource your decisions. Pause, feel, reconnect, and act from who you truly are, not from what everyone else tells you to be. Favorite quote, your intuition is not a whisper in the chaos, it's the path through it. The trust method, a framework for decisions that don't break you. You think decision-making is this mystical, high-stakes battlefield reserved only for big life moments, but Nguyen says, no, what you need is a framework. Not another Instagram quote or just follow your gut garbage, but a deliberate, repeatable method for choosing that doesn't make your brain spiral into chaos. That's where his trust method comes in. And it's not a soft pep talk, it's a battle plan. Trust stands for take stock, risk, unity, step, timeline. Nguyen walks you through it like a drill sergeant of the mind. First, you take stock. List your options, but also list what matters most to you. Not what others think matters, but your core values and long-term direction. Too often, you just look at external outcomes, salary, prestige, comfort. But trust doesn't grow from external validation. It grows where your decisions line up with your identity. Next, risk. Not to be glib, but Nguyen wants you to name the worst case, the best case, and the realistic case scenarios. Then he demands you actually measure them, not sugarcoat them. Fear is there, yes, but by naming it, you yank the power from the voice that weaponizes your imagination against you. You force the risk to speak in data, not in nightmares. Then, unity. This is where you align. You ask, which choice allows me to live in harmony with the person I'm building? This isn't about binary right or wrong. It's about integration. You don't just want to survive your choice. You want your choice to mirror your becoming. If your values say growth, courage, creativity, then trust that voice, even if the safer path pays more or seems easier. After unity comes step, concrete action. Pick one micro commitment you can actually do. Nguyen's not telling you to quit your job and run to Bali, unless that is aligned, but he is telling you to choose something small you can act on now. Decide on something, even if it's imperfect, so you build the muscle of choice. Because choice is like a muscle. If you never use it, it atrophies. And that's how people end up stuck committing to regret. Then timeline. Set a time frame. When will you revisit this decision? When will you reflect? By embedding a decision into a timeline, you prevent your future self from abandoning you. You hold yourself accountable to someone more than just your anxious brain. Nguyen's message is blunt. Tools won't magically fix you, but the right tool can free you. This framework isn't about making perfect decisions, it's about making intentional ones. Perfection is a myth. Intentionality is power, and you reclaim your agency by building a method you can trust over and over again. Now, zoom out. Why does this matter now more than ever? In 2025, the global economy is swimming in uncertainty. The IMF's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, said bluntly, "Uncertainty is the new normal." Volatile trade policies, shifting tariffs, especially from the US, and geopolitical risk are making even small decisions feel like launching a rocket. That's exactly why the trust method is so damn relevant. In a world where economic stability used to feel like a given, you can no longer expect safe bets. The risk isn't just personal, it's systemic. What Nguyen teaches you is how to navigate the fog, how to build internal clarity when the external world is combusting. On a psychological level, research supports him too. Patterns of overthinking don't just come from insecurity, they're woven into how modern brains are wired. And frameworks like trust help override maladaptive loops by giving you structure. Neuroscience shows that decision-related anxiety ramps up when the brain's threat detection circuits, like the amygdala, hijack the executive centers. But by breaking decisions into discrete steps, stock, risk, unity, action, timeline, you re-engage the part of your brain that can plan, reflect, and choose. You train your prefrontal cortex to override the noise. In practical terms, the next time you're paralyzed by a decision, career change, moving country, asking someone out, or even investing money, try this. Take 5 minutes, write out your trust steps, and act on the step part immediately. Even if it's small, even if your heart's racing, because every small trust-built moment strengthens your decision muscle. Key idea: a structured, repeatable framework, trust, gives you power over paralysis. You don't need perfect decisions, just intentional ones. Key takeaway: you reclaim agency by breaking decisions into steps. Evaluate honestly, align deeply, act courageously, and set a timeline to revisit and refine your choices. Favorite quote: you don't master decisions, you build the muscle for them. The self you haven't met yet. Reinventing your decision maker. You've already cracked open the trust method, but now Joseph Nguyen shifts the lens. What if the kind of person you are right now is exactly why your decisions feel like suicide missions? He argues that you don't just make decisions, you become them. Every choice isn't just a path in front of you, it's a hammer that shapes who you are. If you keep choosing out of fear, you're building a self terrified of its own life. If you choose aligned, you're sculpting a future you can believe in. Nguyen insists that identity and decision-making are inseparable. When you decide, you're casting a vote for the person you want to be, not just what outcome you want to get. But most people skip that part. Instead of asking, who do I want to become, they limit themselves to, which option looks good on paper? That's the old you's way, safe, overthinking, playing to please. But if you want real transformation, you have to redesign the decision maker in your head. He tells a hard truth. Growth isn't a lightning bolt moment. It's a slow burning process made of countless small decisions the old you was too scared to make. You don't leap into a new self. You inch, stumble, get back up, lean into discomfort, and learn. And through that series of decisions, even tiny ones, something shifts in you. You stop being someone who overthinks about change and become someone who lives it. That's why he presses on intention. You need to be intentional with your decisions because each one is a vote for the person you're becoming. You don't want to wake up in 10 years, stuck in the same loop, wondering where the version of you that had ambition and clarity went. Nguyen wants you to write this down. Who do I become if I choose differently? Not, what do I get if I choose differently, but who? Because when your identity shifts first, decisions stop feeling like gambles. They feel like steps. He lays down a practical experiment. Pick one identity-based decision, something small but symbolic, like, I'm someone who finishes what they start, or I'm someone who trusts their gut. Then act on it immediately in a tiny way. Send that half-finished project an email. Say yes to something you've talked about but never did. That isn't small. That's you transforming. It's a seed. And by doing it, you start to train your decision muscle around a new version of self, not the overthinking, cautious, safe self you usually default to. But Nguyen doesn't just talk psychology, he leans into neuroscience. He notes that the way your brain is wired reinforces your old self. Your identity isn't just a story, it's material. When you decide from fear, you're strengthening neural pathways tied to avoidance, rumination, and indecision. But when you decide from aligned intention, you engage your brain's executive systems, the networks that help you plan, commit, and build. Over time, you weaken the loops that keep you stuck, and you strengthen the circuits that help you grow. On that note, research backs him. When people repeatedly make decisions aligned with their values, their brains adapt. Neuroscientists talk about neural plasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself based on what you do. That means every aligned step is not just emotional work, it's bio work. It's literally reshaping the parts of you that make decisions. And let's not pretend this is just some personal journey. Globally, people are waking up to this. In economies across the world, from the UK to India to Brazil, job insecurity and social pressure are forcing younger generations to ask, who am I becoming? Not just what job can I get? The old model, study, get job, be safe, is breaking. People are demanding purpose, identity, and alignment, not just a paycheck. What Nguyen teaches is a tool for this moment, a way to be your own architect, not just a passenger. Here's the fiery truth. If you never redesign the decision maker inside you, your future self will be someone you don't even like. Someone who made choices out of fear, regret, and approval. But if you dare to decide differently, even once, you start building a self that reflects the courage you claim to want. You don't escape your old fears by outrunning them. You evolve them. Key idea. You don't just make decisions. You become the person those decisions reflect. Intentional choice shapes identity. Key takeaway. To transform your life, start by acting on the person you want to be. Small identity-based decisions build a new self, decision by decision. Favorite quote, growth isn't a moment, it's a series of decisions the old you was afraid to make. Tiny decisions, massive courage, rewiring your mind through action. You've done the heavy lifting. You've crossed thresholds, examined your fears, rebuilt your inner compass, even built a decision-making framework. But none of that matters if you don't use it. Courage isn't something you claim once in a TED Talk. It's something you build, moment by moment, through choices so small people call them trivial. Nguyen drives a hard truth. Tiny decisions are the real battleground of self-trust. Your confidence doesn't surge when you make one big, perfect decision. It accumulates when you choose again and again, even when your mind whispers, maybe wait. Nguyen insists that micro-choices, the little yeses and nos in daily life, are not just practice. They are the forge where the decision muscle is strengthened. When you wait for a grand, life-defining moment, you're lying to yourself. Those moments are rare. What's common is the daily grind, the in-between, the mundane. That's where real courage is built. He calls them mini trust experiments. Do something small that tests your self-trust. Maybe it's sending the email you've been avoiding, saying yes to a project that scares you, or admitting you don't have all the answers. He points out how people often fall into two traps, waiting for the right decision or waiting to be perfect. Both are illusions. Waiting for right becomes procrastination. Waiting for perfect becomes paralysis. But by designing small decisions, you bypass both. You choose something that's good enough, aligned enough, and then you act. You don't have to leap, you just need to step. And each step carries weight, because every choice you actually make is a vote of trust in yourself. Nguyen makes another serious point. Courage doesn't come in bursts, it accumulates. It's like compound interest. Every decision you make, no matter how small, is a deposit into your self-trust bank. Over time, when you've made enough of these micro choices, suddenly the big ones don't look as scary. The risk doesn't feel as paralyzing. The voice that says you'll fail starts to back down because it's seen you keep choosing anyway. But he's not naive. He knows this is harder than motivational quotes make it sound. Your brain fights you. Habitual neural circuits, the ones wired for doubt, for overthinking, for safety, are loud. Neuroscience supports him. Habit systems in your brain run on efficiency. When you repeatedly commit to small acts, your brain starts to build more efficient networks for action. Some recent science even shows this kind of network dynamic in primate brains during habit learning. You're not just becoming more courageous, your brain is literally rewiring itself for trust, for movement, for alignment. Let's bring it to the real world. In 2025, the global economy is wobbling. According to the IMF, growth is weakening, policy uncertainty is spiking, and trade tensions are making financial decisions feel like walking a tightrope. Kristalina Georgieva, the IMF's managing director, dropped a line that could rewrite the way you make decisions. Uncertainty is the new normal. We're not just in a world of risk, we're living in a world built around it. In that climate, the ability to make small, aligned decisions becomes a superpower. When markets are volatile, when tariffs shift, when supply chains break, it's not always the bold global plays that matter most. It's the consistent, small, faithful choices people make in their own lives. The person who can choose tiny acts of trust every day builds a foundation that no economic storm can easily sweep away. Here's the concrete move Nguyen demands. Today, pick 3 micro decisions that challenge you. Not big, not earth-shattering, but meaningfully aligned with who you want to become. Then commit to doing them for 5 days. At the end of 5 days, reflect. Did your anxiety shift? Did your brain quiet down a little? Did you trust yourself more? Because real transformation isn't about one decision, it's about the collection of decisions. It's not the leap that reshapes your life, it's the habit of choosing. Key idea: courage isn't born in grand moments, it accumulates through tiny decisions that test and build your self-trust. Key takeaway: by choosing small aligned actions repeatedly, you rewire your brain and build a foundation of trust that makes big decisions less terrifying and more meaningful. Favorite quote: your confidence returns not through thinking, but through choosing. A life chosen, the ending that starts everything. You've done more than think. You've chosen. You've stepped through thresholds, faced down fear, rebuilt trust, tested yourself with small acts. But understanding decisions isn't just about learning how to choose. It's about learning to live with what you choose. Nguyen argues that the real power of decision making isn't in the moment of the decision itself. It's in how you live out the life those decisions open up or close off. All the frameworks, all the mental muscle you've built, they're worthless if you don't let the decisions you make become part of you. He confronts the most uncomfortable truth. Most people treat decisions as transactions, not transformations. They read books, watch inspiring videos, make grand plans, and then let everything fade. They never close the loop. Nguyen calls this the gap between decision and existence. You decide, but you don't become. You don't live the trajectory you consciously picked. You keep waiting for something else, for clarity, for freedom, for the right time. His challenge is simple but brutal. Your decision doesn't end when you sign that offer letter or send that message. It ends when you embody it. When your actions, routines, identity, and habits start backing up the choice. That's how a decision becomes actualized. You don't just pick a path, you walk it. You show up every day as someone aligned with what you said mattered. Nguyen points out how journaling, reflection, and repetition are essential in this process. He urges you to track decisions over time, not just big ones, but small ones, and ask yourself, how has this choice shaped my life in the past week, the past month? What parts of me are changing because I decided? That reflection is how you close the loop. Without it, decisions become empty promises to yourself. Now, zoom out, because this isn't just personal. Globally, people are waking up to how fractured their decisions feel in their lives, not just in individual anxiety, but in structural instability. The IMF's managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, recently warned that uncertainty is the new normal. Financial markets are jittery, geopolitical risks are rising, and trade tensions are still a major wild card. In such a world, making decisions is not a one-off luxury, it's an ongoing necessity. Resilience in the face of that kind of uncertainty isn't built through reactive decisions, it's built through actualized decisions. When the world throws curveballs, tariffs, inflation, regulation, the person who set a course aligned with who they truly want to be and then lived into that course doesn't just survive, they adapt. Nguyen's final call is radical. Choose not just with your head, but with your life. Set your vision, decide with intent, live with integrity, reflect, refine, and let your decisions be the threads that weave your future self. Because the greatest regret isn't making the wrong decision, it's never becoming the person you committed to. Key idea: a decision's power lies not in the act of choosing, but in how you live out the life it opens. Real transformation happens when you turn decisions into your identity and daily reality. Key takeaway: to truly choose a life worth living, you must embody your decisions, reflect, act, repeat, and let each choice shape who you become, not just where you go. Favorite quote: the final step is not deciding, it's living. Conclusion: you've made it all the way here, through thresholds, fear, noise, identity, trust, and action. And if you're still listening, it means you're finally tired of bullshitting yourself. Good. Because the real punch of this book isn't in the quotes, or the frameworks, or the brain science. It's in the mirror you now have to stand in front of. Every chapter has been pointing you back to the same brutal truth. Your life is not shaped by the things you think about. It's shaped by the things you decide. And every decision you've avoided, postponed, rationalized, or outsourced has quietly sculpted the life you're living right now. That's the part everyone hates hearing, because it ruins every excuse. You walk through the doorway of choice. You saw how your mind tries to drown you in noise. You learned how focus shapes reality, how fear lies, how the inner compass whispers what logic refuses to admit. You picked up the trust method, so you finally have something better than wishful thinking. You discovered that identity isn't a prison, it's a construction site. And you learned that courage doesn't come from waiting for the dramatic Hollywood moment, but from the tiny, unglamorous daily decisions you keep skipping because they feel too small to matter. And then, finally, you were told the truth that should have slapped you years ago. A decision means nothing unless you live it. That's the whole arc. That's the transformation. That's the punchline of your entire existence. Your life, the one you complain about, dream about, envy from afar, is nothing more than the sum of the decisions you made and the ones you avoided. You've been living on autopilot, pretending you're thinking it through, when really you've been stuck in neutral while convincing yourself you're moving. And the world? The world is not slowing down so you can catch up. The economy isn't calming down. Global uncertainty isn't stepping aside out of respect for your anxiety. Life keeps moving, with or without your permission. So here's the final strike. There is no clarity coming. There is only choice. And if you wait for certainty, you'll wait your entire life. That is the message Joseph Nguyen is handing you. Not gently, but with the kind of honesty that forces you to grow or stay painfully the same. This isn't a feel-good, manifest your destiny fairy tale. This is a wake-up call dressed as a book. It demands you cross the threshold, silence the noise, trust your compass, act in tiny brave ways, and then actually live the life those decisions create. If you don't close that loop, you stay stuck as the version of you that never quite got around to becoming who they wanted to be. And if you do close that loop, if you actually embody the decisions you make, then every part of your life, your relationships, your finances, your purpose, your confidence shifts. Not magically, not instantly, but inevitably, because the moment you start choosing, really choosing, your life stops happening to you and starts happening from you. That's the real freedom. That's the real clarity. That's the real life, the chosen one. So if something in you woke up while listening to this, good. Don't let it fall asleep again. Go get the book. Yes, buy it, read it, mark it up, argue with it, use it, let it disrupt you, let it annoy you, let it build you. And before you click away, think about this. 12 months from now, you're either living a life designed by decisions or one built from indecision. There is no middle, there never was. Choose your life right now. And if this breakdown hit you hard, subscribe, because we're not done tearing down everything that keeps you from becoming who you're meant to be. Now go, make the decision you've been avoiding. Your future self is waiting at the door.